Thank you. Thanks, Parag. So, before I talk about mobility, I just wanted to very quickly describe what the scope I am coming to. So, mobility, we have been hearing it for a long time now, and everybody had those Blackberries, laptops, etc. But things have changed dramatically so much now that I just read in a newspaper a few years back, somebody carrying a laptop and opening it in an aeroplane, he's almost looked like a dinosaur, right? So even yesterday we heard so much about what's happening. They're addicted so much. They're addicted to, and they want to check out what's happening even in the when they wake up in the night, right? So I think from a mobility perspective, there is something for everybody, right from the developer to the board of directors. I think these are the kind of things that are happening right now. And if I have to tell specifically about the IT industry as such, primarily the sales and delivery organization, whether it is in terms of the dashboards that one can have real-time access to information, the whole suite of unified communication apps, whether it's a Cisco, WebEx, Citrix, GoTo or Link, Polycom. And I think it's a very, very key enabler right now in the VGDM model, as we call the Value Global Delivery model, and the ability to be in a position to talk to your customers on demand. That's extremely crucial. And as we embark on this journey, we are also seeing lots and lots of new ideas pouring in, new requests coming in. People want to enable knowledge management apps on our mobile platforms. So when our folks meet customers, they need to be thorough with all the information, but it's impossible to have all the subject matters to be in the front of the customer. So very often we hear people saying that I'll get back to you. Probably this knowledge management app will help them in a scenario to be in a position to immediately look at those answers and then satisfy all the queries of the customer. So you can go in and on, but I think it's definitely playing a very significant role in today's world. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Shyam. So I think, so the word mobility can have a very broad context. One, mobility can be defined as simply having mobile devices, so which is a very common way to define mobility. But the way we think of mobility is many more things. Very clearly, for example, letting people work from the place they want to work, whether their homes, their flex offices. To us, even that's mobility, because fundamentally you're allowing people to be working from any place. And then again, letting your location, your office, to become like a flex place to work is again mobility. So we have great examples here. We've got Pradeep from Genpact, and we've got Madhu here from Wipro. So they have been looking at some very transformational ways of how can some of these concepts of flex work can be deployed within their companies. So I'd like to hear something from you. So maybe Madhu, if you want to start next, and just tell us what are the things you're doing to look at the mobility in a different way as well, beyond the traditional way of having mobile devices as one way to look at mobility.
Okay. Are you able to hear me? Yeah. Thanks, Parag, and thanks, Jitin, also, because when Jitin was talking about Infosys landscape, it was very much resounding what happens at Wipro, because we are also of the same size. So I was very much able to correlate what are the things that used to happen. So on the mobility aspect of it, like what Parag said, it's beyond devices, right? So mobility was there even before, but primarily it was more of remote access. People are only talking from the laptop or from the customer environment. But currently, the entire thing has changed with the cloud coming in, the mobility with great speeds of wireless and the cloud and other things. I think mobility has taken to the next different level. So what we have seen, mobility within Wipro, is it's not only like, say, the remote access. We are seeing a great amount of transformation happening within the workplace. I'm saying within the corporates, within the enterprise, within the campuses. We are seeing a great amount of changes happening. So Wipro in its next generation, the next buildings, next campuses that's coming up, we are something looking at virtual workplace, where we wanted to go beyond boundaries. We call this as boundaryless ODCs and other things, where we don't want to constrain ourselves within the four walls of the ODCs. So from that aspect of it, we are looking at saying that how exactly we can empower users, wherein they can work from different campuses or within the ODCs, like say how exactly they can work from different ODCs and other things. See, the complexities of an ITS companies has also drastically changed, where typically when we started maybe 10 years back, we used to typically work only from one location where the skill sets are available. Today what's happening is the skill sets are available across multiple locations, multiple geographies and other things. So we need to develop or we need to deliver those things from various other where the manpower or the skill sets are available. So it's important for us to ensure that we make our mobile workforce have access to applications data from anywhere. So that's one thing. Apart from that, what has happened over a period of time is, like say, we used to have dedicated resources working for a particular account or ODC. With the Flex Center, what Parag was talking about in Wipro, we have now the skill sets working for different ODCs at different points of time working from the same place. So it becomes much more reason for us to see that how exactly people have various access to various different ODCs from a same point of time. Apart from that, the one more big use case that we have seen in mobility is Wipro being again a 150,000 user organization. We have a lot of back-end office work that we do, back office work we do. In turn, we outsource a lot of work to what we call as the rural BPO, where some of these services are being delivered from those offices. And typically these are from tier 2, tier 3 and from the rural places that people are doing. And things like virtual desktops, what we are talking about, the Zen app or the virtual desktop are some of the technology which are being used to deliver these services.
Great, thanks, Madhu. So I think clearly this is transformation because the examples which Madhu right now gave about flex ODCs, and then to us this is transformation because really you are trying to redefine the way you kind of run your business, and that's exactly things which will now change in mobility coming in. And then we have Pradeep here from Genpact, and again they have a very interesting setup where they are a large BPO, they have clients in the US and around the world, and then they are trying to make their workplace as mobile, where they have the same workplace and they want to kind of have it used by multiple people and agents, right? So I would like to have Pradeep tell us what is mobility for them and how is some transformation happening within Genpact using these solutions and these approaches.
Sure. Thanks. See, for us, I'll say the reason the mobility was within the premise first. The mobility, when you say work from anywhere, work from any device, I will say that's applicable for the senior management, frankly speaking. For us, the 90% of the population is the associate which works for a customer. And the mobility for them is that they should be able to work wherever in the premise itself. Today we've got like 24 premise in India. Because we work for multiple different customers. Every customer needs a dedicated area, carved out access controlled areas, right? And then the reason for having an access controlled carved out area is the data lying on the desktops. We want to eliminate that because as soon as you have a data on the desktop or a laptop endpoint, you have to now make it secure. You have to carve it out. We decided to move this data out of this desktop and move it to the data center so that these people can work from anywhere. These people should be able to work anywhere. Earlier we used to have a BCP setup. For every process there will be a BCP setup and dedicated seats mapped for them, which will be only used in case of a disaster. With this, we say mobility, you can actually work from anywhere. That eliminates the complete need of a 30% BCP seats block. So for us, the real estate was the main reason for this. But when we move virtualized environment, when everything is in the same data center, we will not be managing multiple 24 server rooms. And it is the mobility of the users who can work within the premise. Because when we work for a customer, they may not allow us working from home or working from an open environment, but it is more of a within premise. So that's how what we identified as the virtualization good for, and then we implement in that way.
Thanks, Pradeep. So before I go to the IT part and have Milind also comment up from IT standpoint, but I just want to have some more views from the panel here, is that all of this is change, right? But fundamentally, every transformation needs change, and it's not simple. We all know change is hard, it takes time, you have to undo a lot of things. So I also want to get a fair assessment and your feedback about what issues, challenges you're facing, right now within your corporation that you try to drive this change. So again, maybe Shyam, just tell us what kind of issues you anticipate and ideas about how should one deal with those issues moving forward.
Sure. So as we embarked on this journey for mobility, quite a lot of things are coming into play, and some of those things may not seem obvious, but we get to discover and put it all in the plan as much as possible holistically to begin with, but we may not be able to make all those investments on day one. So, and it's again a very, very dynamic and evolving kind of stuff. Just to add on, if we have to enable mobility for say 100,000 users, it's just not the enterprise mobility management platform that we need to put in place. A whole lot of other factors which include the network bandwidth requirements and the kind of traffic patterns that would emerge both on the inbound and outbound side. Look at how much bandwidth, the internet bandwidth that's needed for getting all these devices connected onto the network, whether it's on 3G or 4G networks. So that's something that we are putting in place. That's from the infrastructure side of things. Again, enabling the enterprise for Wi-Fi access securely. That's again a huge investment from the infrastructure standpoint. Though we are hearing a lot about containerization kind of technologies, they give some kind of basic security. But if we want to really go with advanced security, we'll have to make further investments, whether it's in terms of the Cisco network admission control. Incidentally, Cisco is a sponsor here, so we have the network admission control, we have the advanced malware protection. So these are the kind of things that are going to be extremely important. And the other things are not technology related, but so important, whether it's in terms of the telecom expense management or the legal aspects, privacy aspects. Then we also have the dimension coming into picture. So the kind of program management that needs to be done for driving a mobility exercise is humongous, and all of these folks need to come together to make things happen. So that's all I could share at this moment.
Great. Thank you. Madhu, any comments on the challenges or things you anticipate as you drive this change within Wipro?
Yeah, the challenges, yes, a couple of things at least I can think of as we are embarking into this journey. I think one, what Shyam rightly pointed out is the infrastructure part of it. I think when I'm talking from the technology aspect of it, I think we need to really enhance our infrastructure, be it our network or be it our traffic patterns. The way we really re-architect our network is primarily very important in this aspect. So we need to really look at that aspect of it. The other thing is the policies. The policies becomes very important because the reason is with more and more companies going in for a BYOD kind of a concept, or a CYOD, that some people call it as choose your own device kind of a thing. The proliferation of devices as well as the platform increases. The complexity also increases, right? The development work, the cost of development and other things also increases with satisfying various platforms. So it's important we need to really think through all this aspect of it before even embarking into this journey. And the policies which I mentioned in terms of how you ensure secure access both for applications, data, files, users, devices and other things, it's pretty important. So we need to really look into that aspect of it. The other thing is when we look at more from the desktop virtualization aspect of it, the change management becomes very important because it's not the technology over there which plays a role. The change management, because the user who has already been used to a physical device now and having the data and other things locally, now things are moving remote, being there within the data center, and the dependency of the network becomes so huge. So the challenges in terms of having a very high reliable network and the way you need to convince, educate the user saying that how exactly things are going to transform and what are the benefits that it's going to get. So the amount of user education that we need to make is pretty huge. So I think that part of the change management we need to take care. And some of these initiatives, especially more on the desktop virtualization, I don't see so much on the mobile devices and other things. The acceptance or the championship has to come from the senior management. So that's very important in this aspect of it. Otherwise, the program may fail. So these are some of the key challenges that I see that we need to take it when we are embarking on this journey.
Great, thanks. I'll just kind of move gears a bit, and then go to the thing we all love about is technology. As in, we all IT guys here, right? So I just want to kind of switch gears and talk about, the whole IT aspect of mobility, because fundamentally that's what will enable all these good things we're talking about. And in fact, I was talking to one of your senior colleagues, Madhu, in Wipro a couple of days back, who's a market-facing guy, and we're talking about the future of mobility. And I think he told me a very interesting thing. So I won't name him here, but he's a senior guy in Wipro, and he was saying that the way we see the future is basically it's unifying experiences, right? Because fundamentally, in large companies, you'll have people coming in to access information, which is application data, whatever, through different locational devices. So idea is to unify experiences for people so that they can kind of access everything in a very unified approach. So that was the big thing. So how do we kind of have a strategy where you have unified experiencing as a thing for the edge guy, the user guy, and then he or she can access any information on any cloud. So experience and cloud kind of becomes the two important aspects of driving mobility. So which means the back end and the front end kind of a thing, right? So this is how, as in we believe this whole thing will evolve, when we believe that architecturally one has to look at the whole aspect in an end-to-end way. And now the discussion as I will have right now is to kind of see what is happening on that space, Citrix outside the world, and see what your feedbacks are. So first I'll call Milind here. He's our partner from NetApp, and would love to hear that how is NetApp looking at mobility, and what is the views you have from mobility standpoint, and what ideas you have for the audience here.
So thanks, Parag. So if I look at mobility, it's driven from both the sides. So one is the businesses are asking for it, so there are use cases, and there is a consumerization. Right? So people, the way how they are brought up, the young generation, they would want to go ahead with the mobility. But when you look at mobility, the repository or data repository is at a centralized place. So as he mentioned in his comment, so either it's in data center or it's in a cloud. It can be a public cloud, or it can be a private cloud, or a hybrid. Now the whole challenge is on the data management, data security, and data rendering as well. Right? So some of the challenges that are there is, and how we try to solve it, is if we are having users on the edge, how can they ensure, or how we can ensure that this data, which is lying centrally, is rendered to him in the given performance level, so that he continues to use it. So whether it is scrolling down the sheet, or getting that data in that expected speed. So that's where the intelligence of SSDs, flash come into the picture to ensure that the user experience is taken care of. Right? That's one. Second is a lot of user data which gets created, it gets put back onto the centralized data center. Right? So this is all unstructured data, and that's the highest growth we see. The data growth is very high in the unstructured compared to the structured data. So how do we take care of this unstructured data explosion? So there the technologies like the efficiency technologies like deduplication, all has to be essentially done on the primary. It can't be done on the secondary. So there has to be a mechanism of doing deduplication on the primary, so that we are able to limit the data. Third one is the more to do with the cloud, right? So there are as he mentioned in his earlier presentation, like working with the cloud looks simpler, but when you actually go through that, it's difficult, right? And one of the difficulty is the getting into the cloud environment is easy, but exit is difficult, because you can wish away with compute, but then the data which is there at cloud, how do you get it back to you? Right? Data is absence of data, impacts business. There are examples of businesses going out of action because data not available. So there is a mechanism or a solution called NetApp Private Storage, where we work with our public cloud partners to ensure that there is a ease of moving data from your premises to the cloud and vice versa. Right. So the benefits of cloud in terms of compute, in terms of operations, in terms of scale is those still we get those benefits, but then we are having much better control of data. Right. So these are some of the comments from my side.
Thanks, Milind. So Pradeep, I know that you guys are undergoing a lot of changes in Genpact for good, and it's an ongoing change, right? I know change is ongoing, so I would like to hear from you, for the audience sake, that what things are today driving your change of architecture, data centers, how you kind of look at this whole thing moving forward as you embrace, virtual desktops and mobility. So what's your view of the evolution of IT architecture to embrace this change?
So, okay, I'll say we covered most of the aspects yesterday in this session from Rob and Alan. I'll say the vision wherein Genpact has is that when we win a deal, okay, starting from the provisioning of a desktop to the software and then making it work from anywhere, that should all be automated. Okay, there are any development, some IT enabled businesses, for example. Whatever is needed, it should be available in the way that you go to a store, you download that stuff, and then you are able to work, right? Yeah. The entire effort should only be on the transitioning of the processes to Genpact, first of all, right? Then the internal OS applications, everything should be all automated, right? That is one, and it should be done so seamlessly that today, whatever they use, there are a user who has to go to IT for multiple things, right? It should be an invisible IT for us, okay? There are 4 themes we are working on, wherein how do we self-enable the user that they should be able to do these things? What are the scheduled timely activities which should be done on the system wherein these things are proactively taken care of? So, everything should be one in the centralized one, and then maybe on a cloud based. So there should not be any investments by Genpact in the infrastructure. It should be more of outside. There should not be any investments on the floor. The floors should all be dumb clients, zero clients. There's nothing to be on the floor. That's the way it should be. Another important thing I want to highlight, Parag, is that I'm sure everybody here, we are all expected to have the latest of the technologies and to be implemented first time right? And that's one of the challenges which we see as that implementing a new technology without a failure, without an experiment, we usually will rely on people like you, because what matters is experience, best practices, that whatever we have learned so far, and then we implement it in the right way. So, summing it up, doing it first time right is something which is very important for us, okay? And then transforming it with the minimal changes for an end user is another criteria for us. That for them, it should be the way they were using it today, that it should be very minimum disruptive, right? So, idea is to have everything secure within the data centers or maybe a cloud-based solution. But minimum IT team, I will say, to support this, and then minimum time to provision something like this. Yeah. And then mobility. Mobility means that you don't have to be blocking a floor or a site for a particular business. It should be, you can work from anywhere, right? So that's how it is.
Great. Thanks. So Shyam, I think you spoke a bit about it as well, but I still want to get some more views, because as in, like the way even Jitin mentioned about the complexity of the whole IT, right? In large corporations, you have data centers, you have applications, you have varied users. So you have a pretty complex IT setup also in the net, all of big companies. So so when you embrace mobility, how does that change really impact your architecture from the backend perspective, and how do you deal with change from the IT standpoint with your backend stakeholders? What kind of things you are looking at doing and kind of driving forward?
Sure. So when we started this, we put all our requirements together, and very quickly we were able to come up with the enterprise mobility solution stack, or the framework as we can call that, and that comprises multiple things, and it's just not that it's only for mobility's sake. There are infrastructure investments that are anyway needed to be done, whether it's in terms of the network security, network admission control, or the other bandwidth infrastructures that I talked about. So there are around 5 to 6 building blocks, if we can call, that come into play. At the foundation layer, you have the infrastructure. It could be your data centers, the Wi-Fi, 3G, and the entire platform from an infrastructure standpoint. Then you have the policies, processes, advanced security options, all of that coming into play, including the legal and things like that. And then you have the third building block, which is a telecom expense management, which is very crucial. And when we embark on a solution like mobility, we do not want to increase the cost of ownership. We want to make sure that the TCO is as minimum as possible. And we have lived in an environment where the entire solution stack, including the telecom carrier ecosystem, has been taken care of, but now we are shifting to a different paradigm. So it's very important that we come up with appropriate reimbursement models, appropriate incentive mechanisms for people to adopt this technology. And we also heard about this California state law, which mandates that as an employer, if you roll out a BOD program, you have to mandatorily reimburse part of those expenses. So there are a whole lot of things that are coming into play. And then we have the application governance model in terms of how you want to roll out your applications. Already we would have web-enabled our applications. Now we need to make sure that these applications are available from the mobile platform. Different kinds of elements creep in. For example, the form factors could be different from a smartphone and a tablet. So the kind of applications that you can roll out would differ. It could be either an HTML5 based access, or it could be a native app, or it could be a third party app like the one that Jiten spoke about. It could be a Cognos kind of app that will give a BI dashboard. And then we also want to build app ecosystem so that all of our developers can participate somehow and contribute applications that are meaningful. So there are a whole lot of building blocks that come into play in enterprise mobility solution stack.
Great. Yeah. And Madhu, you lead the infrastructure practice in Wipro, and I know that one of the largest mandates for your data centers, and I know that that this change has a lot of impact again on data centers, because every time you go and deploy something new, you go back to data center to ask for more space, more power, and that's an ongoing conflict I'm sure you have, right? And I know that things are changing a lot there. There's convergence happening. We have solutions today from companies, including Citrix, by the way, where you kind of help unify things on common platforms like NetScalers. But I'm sure that there are issues you have today to deal with data center space and issues around that. So tell us something more about that, and how do you think you'll deal with those issues moving forward, and what ideas you have around that?
What you said was right. In fact, the data center requirements in terms of the high availability aspect of it, it's always there. Apart from that, we have more and more applications getting centralized, consolidation happening. The criticality and the availability of the data center is becoming much more critical. With the advancement in the technologies, especially in terms of virtualization, cloud and everything, has helped a long way. Again, we are able to put more number of servers, or reduce the number of physical servers, put more number of virtual servers, has really helped us. Otherwise, if you look at, we have not really grown in terms of the number of data centers. We have only consolidated, and we are reusing the existing data centers. So I think we have reached a tipping point wherein we don't have much space in our existing data centers. And the clear direction is we don't want to invest more in the data center space. So as part of that, the entire strategy is to see how we adopt more and more cloud. So we did a lot of virtualization, a lot of private cloud, but what we are doing is more and more applications. Specifically, we have started more and more of the dev test kind of an applications moving on to the cloud, the public cloud. And we have also started moving some of the other applications moving on to the public cloud, where people more externally access those applications. We have not used basically migrated applications. For example, let's say the appraisal systems or the leave system, or some of the systems which we use on a day-to-day basis, we have not moved. But very minimal application, like for example, sales applications or the payroll kind of an application, which are occasionally used, we are trying to move those applications onto the cloud. The learning management system is one thing which we have recently moved onto the cloud, which is very occasionally used for a specific set of users who are using it. So the going forward, the strategy is very clear. We'll have cloud first, and the other thing is the mobile first. So any applications that we write, it will be for the cloud and for the mobile. So this is the strategy which we have adopted. So it's very clear direction saying that we are not going to invest any more on the on-premise data center. It's going to be more on the cloud.
I think this is a right journey, because this is how, even if you look at Citrix, our strategy of mobile workspace, that fundamentally tells you that that you're secure, you're virtual, you're mobile, At the same time, the big thing is in any cloud, right? So your backend has to be completely anything, and you should have a common experience to a user. So that's a fundamental kind of assumption we have when we build these solutions. So so in terms of timelines, I don't know how much time we have now. Maybe 10 more minutes. So we can open up for questions right now, and just want to take feedback. And again, I think we have enough CIOs here. Questions plus comments, because I'm sure we spoke about a few things. If the audience has any comments or views around the areas we spoke right now, we'd love to share and hear your feedback around those things. So,
Parag, I just wanted to mention something before that.
sure, Madhu.
One thing which I thought might be interesting to know audience view also on that. When we're talking about the integrated mobile strategy, right? See, more and more what we are doing earlier was, like, say, how exactly we are talking more on the mobile devices and the tablets piece of it, right? And typically we were talking about the BYOD part of it, the device part of it, like say bring your own device. So what within BPROACT is what we are thinking is how exactly we can go ahead and embrace bring your own computers. Or the other thing, what also we are looking at is if not bring your own computers, we are also doing something like CYOD, choose your own device kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Wherein we don't want to limit to a specific number of brands or like say laptops and other things. We want to give a various choices. Like Mac is something that which there is a tremendous amount of demand for Macs within the organization. So we are really looking at saying that how exactly we can bring these two together. See, we have seen a big amount of change happening, or the adoption in terms of security and access on the mobile side, from smartphone and tablets. Like say containerization, other things are really helping us over there. How you can segregate the personal data and the customer data or the office data. So there is a technology. But we are looking at a similar kind of a thing, how exactly we can achieve in the other space. Like say on the desktop, or let's say the desktop may not be the right thing, or maybe the laptops or the Macs that we are talking. How exactly we can containerize within that. We know that today what we are doing is more on the virtual desktop kind of thing. I think be it Zen Desktop or the Zen app is the right at this point of time, because people can bring in their various devices, but they have access to the desktops, Zen Desktop or Zen app. But if you wanted to do something within the environment, within the desktop, how exactly we can segregate within the endpoint itself, rather than depending completely on the remote desktops and other things. So we need to really look at saying that how exactly we can integrate these two things, these two strategies together, so that you have a seamless access, whether you talk from the laptops to the devices. You have a seamless kind of thing, seamless kind of policies, and a seamless manageability across all the platforms.
Correct. Good, I think it's a good point. So I think with this context of BYO, as a BYO or CYO or whatever, I think the different words for that. So I think let's have a quick audience feedback in terms of what is that you think about BYO and what's happening in your companies today, and your comments or feedbacks on what we spoke so far.
I have a couple of questions to Madhu and as well as to Jitin also.
Sure.
Like one, I would like to know when he talked about the Flexi ODC stuff. I'd like to know more little on that. Why is like just to see that what are the probabilities that how are we convincing, because we also have the same challenges that people ask, the customers will come and ask that my environment should be completely sealed and I don't want even a network point or wireless crossing that stuff. So they're so finicky about that. They themselves, maybe the customer themselves, maybe people who are providing such kind of security solutions to their own customers, but they when it comes to them being their development, they don't agree to their norms at all. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we have, and how this Flexi ODC stuff can help on that. That is one thing. Second, when you also talked about virtual offices, right? So what is the strategy that you're adopting? Are you adapting to say move away from a conventional desktops into a virtual desktops, or you are actually partly virtual desktops and partly you will give laptops, or maybe thin laptops are there nowadays, right? You make the people more mobile and all things like that. In those scenarios also, how are you taking care of the customer security concerns? That's one of the biggest challenges we also have. So these two are my common questions to the forum.
So I'll try to give the couple of things which we also face the similar issues, I will say. So as the main objective was the real estate for us, right? This is a this journey of virtualization in Genpact is a partnership between IT and logistics as well. So what logistics is also working on is that to a particular floor, it should be a shift-based access given to those people. Okay, so the access to a shift to a floor should be only given to people whose shift is theirs. Okay, so that one you make sure that during that shift nobody else goes to that floor for them, right? The entire branding of that customer, okay, it has to be in a way which can be established and removed within the shift as well. So I completely agree that there are multiple such issues which are customer like shoulder surfing. You can't maintain control shoulder surfing if you have a same floor working for two different customers, right? The shift-based control access is one. Second is the disclaimers, NDAs, and the kind of underwriting we get signed by the employees. Okay, that is another way we have tried to give some comfort to the customers. So it is about the concerns raised by the customers, and then we mitigate on how do we do this. So for example, these three ideas were on access basis the shift. NDAs, writings signed by the user on what are they supposed to do and what are they not supposed to do, and the branding to be in a way which can be established and removed during the shift time also. So that's how we're trying to address the other factors.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I really agree with you that if you talk about BPO environment or maybe a KPO kind of environment where we have shifts and things like that, definitely it's a good and workable solution. I'm talking about an use case where typically our scenario is this, that we don't run on shifts or whatever it is, but it is telecom software R&D services similar to what Wipro and Infosys also may be doing and all those stuff. So where we don't run on shifts, but we work for multiple customers, and those customers are competitors to each other. So that's where the challenge comes in when we are trying to tell that okay, let there be a flexibility in terms of when you talk about real estate. Of course, yes, we want to have hand-in-hand support from real estate also. I have one floor, maybe 10 people working for one particular ODC, another 20 working for another ODC. Creating small blocks for these small set of ODCs is involving a lot of cost and efforts in terms of implementing the security controls for them separately. That's what I wanted to know more from Madhu, saying that what Flexi ODC concept is, how it is helping.
Do you want to respond to this?
Let me take it because I'm able to understand your point. See, first and the foremost thing is we cannot, like say for example, the Flex Center, what we are talking about, cannot be universally applied for all the customers and for all kinds of jobs that you are doing, right? For example, let's say you are developing some IP for a customer, definitely this kind of things will not work. Or for example, let's say you are working for a BFSI kind of a customer, it may not work for those kind of instances. And some of these things you need to work with the customer at the initial stage. When you sign the MSA agreements and other things, you should sign up at that stage itself, saying that what exactly the Flex Center benefits that you're doing. Because ultimately, customer also look at cost of delivery and other things. So you need to really look at what kind of work that you will typically use it. So for example, in Wipro's case, what I have seen most of the cases is in terms of a support, the infrastructure kind of a support, right? Where there is no IP which is involved, right? It's basically you are supporting customers on the infrastructure. Or for example, some maintenance kind of jobs that you are doing. So those are the places where it's right suited, right? In those kind of environments, definitely we can go in for a Flex Center where the complexity or the IP kind of things are not very high. And even in such kind of situations, like what customer sometimes wants to, like say, access from their own network, what we typically do is I'm just getting into a little bit more details from the technical aspects of it. So what happens is, like say, you have a physical desktop, let's assume. So what you have is you have two different, let's say that you are supporting two different customers, right? So you have two different virtual desktops. Let's say one virtual desktop would be part of one different plan, let's say customer A VLAN, and the other desktop will be customer B VLAN. So what typically you do is when you log into the desktop and when you connect to the customer A, you are ideally part of that particular VLAN, right? So you are there on that particular VLAN, so you can access customer resources and other things, provide support whatever is required. Once you are through, you log off. But over there we ensure that all kinds of logging, okay, what kind of audit mechanism, trial mechanism, and in terms of controls, like saying no copy paste and other things. So these are the things which are being into it, and these are the things which are getting implemented. But it's more important to really look at taking the customer sign off, and customer is also aware saying that what exactly the kind of jobs that you're doing. So it's very important that you sign off with your customers and be within their policy whatever it's been decided.
Thanks, Madhu. I think
The second question I think probably which you are asking about is virtual desktop can be universally adopted everywhere? It's not. So you need to really look at the various business cases where exactly the virtual desktops would fit in. So there are some cases even when we look at not in all scenarios that your physical desktops can be replaced. But we have seen most of the instances it can be done. But what it requires is it requires a dedicated amount of effort, time and other things to see what applications can be virtual, what applications can be moved into the data center, right? Can be virtualized. So if we do a significant amount of due diligence and other things, there's definitely a lot of applications can be virtualized.
Thanks, Madhu. I think for want of time, I'm sorry, I think we may have one more last question from the audience. I'm so sorry, we would love to make this more interactive, but you know, so one last comment or question from the audience here would be great. Good. So I'm sorry, I'm like cutting it in between, but yeah, we had a great discussion. Thanks, Shyam. Thanks, Madhu. Thanks, Milind. Thanks, Pradeep. I think great discussion we had, and I'm sure you guys would have learned some new things. And again, you guys can talk offline. The idea is to kind of, you know, have you guys meet here, and I'm sure you guys will be in touch even offline and leverage this information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.